I've gotten a lot of questions lately about what the differences are between a building inspector and a home inspector. So today I want to jump into kind of what those differences are and maybe help you make a decision if you're out there looking for a career change or a path to go down. Maybe this will give you a little bit of insight on maybe what some of the differences are. A little bit about me though, this is Ben with Building Code Tips. So my YouTube channel is Building Code Tips, but my day job is as a building inspector. I've been a building inspector for about 10 years now. I think my 10-year anniversary is coming up, and so I've dealt with home inspectors when it comes to buying and selling real estate and so on and so forth. But my specialty is a building inspector. So I may not have all the insights when it comes to a home inspector. So if anybody out there watches this video and you've got some tips or some comments to add, definitely put them in the comments below. The idea is just to get this information out to whoever's out there and whoever's trying to make that decision. So first, kind of like what's the big difference? So a home inspector is typically someone that's hired by a buyer, and I think when the market is really hot and things are selling really fast, I've even seen or heard where the seller will even hire a home inspector, and they will come in and they will inspect the home. They will put together a report of items that should be fixed or things that could use maintenance down the road, just items to make you aware of before you purchase that house, right? Or items that the buyer can then fix so that they're taken care of before the house closes. So at the end of the day, it's the home inspector is hired and paid by the buyer or the seller in a home or a house sale transaction. Someone buys a house, and the home inspector is going to come in there and just verify that it's okay. When you get into specific types of loans, I think like FHA loans, there might be like VA loans and stuff like that. There can be requirements that you have to have a home inspector. Conventional loans, you can ask for one, but you don't have to use one. So with that being said, the home inspector's income and their job security is tied to the housing market, right? It's tied to how many houses are being bought and sold. If there's not any being bought or sold, then there may not be as much work out there. So that's kind of the basic premise of a home inspector. So then the building inspector is typically hired by a government agency. So it'd be like a city building department, a county building department. And anytime a homeowner or a contractor purchases a permit, and that permit is purchased, and they go out and they start doing that work, then they're going to call for inspections. And, I say building inspector, but in the broad umbrella of that, there's electrical inspectors and plumbing inspectors and fire inspectors. And, the list goes on and on and on. So if you can buy a permit for it, that means there's somebody out there that can inspect it. The city I work for, we have sidewalk inspectors. We have tree inspectors to make sure that different trees that are planted when people build new houses are installed properly, and that sidewalks have the proper amount of gravel put in them, and that the sidewalk thickness is correct, because that's part of city sidewalk that people are repairing or installing, so they want to make sure it's up to their standards. So you can see that like the inspector world can just balloon into all sorts of different areas. And but myself, I am a building and plumbing inspector, so that's my focus. And so for the past 10 years, it's essentially what I've done. Is any permit that someone buys that's related to building, so it'd be structural, framing, building roofs, finishing a basement, right? They might only be framing up like 2 walls, or they could be building an entire mall, right? Or a school or something. Like those types of items structurally is stuff that I would look at, and then I would dive into anything that's plumbing related. In our jurisdiction, so our city, the city where I live, we also have then electrical and mechanical inspectors. So they take care of everything electrical and mechanical related, those items. You can also get into the private sector with inspection as a building inspector with specialty requirements. And what I mean by that is when you get into like big commercial projects, you're going to have what they call special inspectors. And those special inspectors are usually a third-party inspector that is not related to, or doesn't have any ties to the contractor or the owner of this particular project. And they can go in there and they can look at items like welding or rebar, or they can do concrete compaction testing. They can do soil compaction testing. And they can get into those specialty items that maybe a building inspector like myself would not have the time for, or have the general knowledge to get into those real specific items, those real specific details. And so you can go out and you can get certified in those items and get a job with, like I said, like a private company that does just those items. Generally, you're kind of hired by a city or government entity as a building inspector. As a home inspector, I believe that there's like franchises or like companies where you can get hired, but a lot of times it seems to be like they're self-employed, and you get in well with a few realtors, and they send you referrals, and that's what helps you get going and build up a client base and be able to build your portfolio and essentially build your income. So with that being said, though, then what about like job security, pay, benefits, amount of time, effort put into everything? Obviously I'm a building inspector, so I probably lean a little bit more towards that side of things. I can see how a home inspector would have more freedom, in essence of, you don't have to work 8 to 5. You kind of go as you have jobs, but like any type of self-employed person, you're tied to that job. You got to take those jobs when you can get them, but you can also take vacation when you want to take vacation and be off, and so on and so forth. On the flip side, as a building inspector and working for a government, you kind of get some of those higher end benefits as far as medical and retirements. And governments usually have pretty good time off and vacation pay and all that kind of stuff. And I would contest that that's true. I mean, I can't complain about any of the vacation that I receive, or my benefits, or my retirement package. Like, it's all wonderful and great. Like, I wouldn't complain about any of it. Versus like a home inspector, I mean, I assume you have to go out and find insurance through a third party, or any type of retirement stuff would be you creating those accounts and putting your funds in there, and so on and so forth. So you kind of control your own destiny, per se, as a home inspector. But as a building inspector, you have like that job security. Okay, so if the housing market crashes and you don't have any houses to inspect, well, that could be a problem. But if the housing market's hot, I'm sure that you can make quite a bit more funds, quite a bit more money being a home inspector, just simply due to demand. So you kind of have to follow the ebbs and flows of the housing market as a home inspector. As a building inspector, I could see where if everything crashed enough, there could be layoffs probably in different government areas, depending on what you inspect. If you're just I know in bigger cities, like maybe there's only commercial building inspectors, residential building inspectors, only plumbing inspectors, and so on and so forth, where I'm kind of a combination inspector. And so maybe if the housing market totally crashes, residential building inspectors may get laid off, but I would have to believe that would be kind of last resort. So I would have to say, based on what I've seen and in my opinion, that job security is going to be much greater as a building inspector working for like a government entity. So that in a nutshell kind of breaks down the difference between a home inspector and a building inspector. So if you made it through this video and you got any questions, definitely hit the comments below. If I could ask anything, I would appreciate any support in hitting that subscribe button down there, and just kind of help this channel grow. It'd be much appreciated. But in a nutshell, home inspector, self-employed, and they got to go out and get their own jobs, and they inspect homes when they're hired for the sale of a house. Building inspector, goes out and they inspect when they're called from the contractor or the homeowner to inspect something that was done under a permit that was purchased. So when that permit's purchased, they do part of that work, they call for the inspection, we go out there and verify that it's done properly, sign it off when it's done, move on to the next one. So this has been with Building Code Tips. I hope this helps you out there. Hit up buildingcodetips.com. I'm really excited about some of the freebies I've got in there. I've got some checklists that I just put up, and whether or not you are just a DIYer watching this video or you're somebody looking to get into the career as a building inspector or a home inspector, I think I've got some stuff in there that just might be general information that could help you out, give you some more knowledge, and keep you moving down the road.